old farm tradition.
Robert Hayes buried his wife on a Thursday in November 2017. Margaret, age 64, had died of pancreatic cancer after a 9-month battle. The funeral was simple, attended by maybe 80 people from their farming community in Calhoun County, Iowa. Robert, age 67, stood by the grave with his 2 adult daughters, accepting condolences, numb with grief. 3 days later, on Sunday evening, Robert sat at his kitchen table going through Margaret's papers. She'd handled the finances for 43 years of marriage. Robert farmed, Margaret managed money. That was their arrangement. He trusted her completely, never questioned, never checked. In a folder marked Medical Private, Robert found something that stopped his heart. Bills, stacks of them, medical bills from the cancer treatment. Bills Margaret had hidden from him, the total $5,347. Robert stared at the number. They had insurance, but it covered maybe 60%. The rest, co-pays, deductibles, out-of-network specialists, experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. Margaret had been paying out of their savings. When savings ran out, she'd borrowed, quietly, without telling Robert. She'd taken a personal loan from First National Bank in August, 3 months before she died. Borrowed $28,000 at 11.8%. Monthly payment, $618. She'd made 3 payments from her own small checking account, money from selling eggs and garden vegetables. Then she died. The loan, with 3 months of payments made, still had $26,140 remaining. The other bills, various medical providers, each dunning for payment, totaled £23,507. Combined debt, £50,147. Robert sat alone in his kitchen, his wife 3 days in the ground, staring at $50,000 in debt he didn't know existed. His first emotion was anger. Why hadn't Margaret told him? His second emotion was shame. She'd hidden it because she didn't want to burden him. His third emotion was determination. This debt would not survive her. He would pay it. Robert Hayes farmed 280 acres in Calhoun County. Small operation by modern standards. His equipment, a 1964 Farmall 806 he'd bought used in 1978 for $9,200. 39 years later, that tractor was 53 years old, had over 18,000 hours on it, but still ran. Robert maintained it himself. Every bearing, every seal, every gasket. He knew that tractor better than he knew himself. His financial situation in November 2017, he owned his 280 acres free and clear, paid off in 2003. His house was paid off, no equipment debt. His annual gross income from farming was maybe $78,000, $82,000, depending on yields and prices. His expenses, seed, fertilizer, chemicals, fuel, property taxes, insurance, utilities, food, total $48,000, $50,000. That left $28,000, $34,000 annually. From that, he'd need to pay $5,347 in debt, plus continue living. The math was tight, but possible. If he cut personal spending to almost nothing, farmed perfectly, saved every penny, he could pay the debt in maybe 4 to 5 years. Robert decided on 3 years. By November 2020, this debt would be gone. That was his promise to Margaret's memory. He started immediately, November 2017. Called the bank, explained the situation. They were sympathetic but firm. The loan was due. Monthly payments must continue. Robert asked if he could pay more than the minimum to eliminate it faster. They said yes. He called the medical providers, negotiated. Most agreed to payment plans without interest if he paid minimum monthly amounts. He set up automatic payments, $618 to the bank, $100 to medical providers. Total, $1,118 per month, $20,616 annually. That was 62% of his typical net income. He'd have maybe $10,000, $12,000 to live on per year for 3 years. Possible, but brutal. Robert cut everything. Cancelled cable TV. Cancelled internet. Kept only basic phone. Stopped eating out. Hadn't done much anyway, but now zero. Stopped buying anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. His daughters offered help. He refused. "This is my responsibility. Your mother kept this from me to protect me. I'm going to finish what she started." December 2017, first full month. Robert wrote checks totaling $1,718. Hurt to see that money leave, but the debt dropped from $5,347 to $48,629. Progress. January 2018. Robert faced his first crisis. The 1964 Farmall starter failed, completely dead. Robert tried rebuilding it, couldn't, needed replacement. Cost $240. He didn't have $240 in discretionary funds. Every dollar was allocated, but he needed the tractor running for spring planting in 3 months. He had to figure something out. Robert had a small workshop, did welding and repair work for neighbors occasionally. He called 3 farmers, offered services, fixed a grain auger for one, $180. Repaired a broken gate for another, $60. Welded a cracked implement frame for a third, $140. Made $380 in 10 days. Bought the starter, installed it himself. Tractor ran. That pattern, unexpected expense, scrambled to cover it, would repeat constantly for 3 years. Spring 2018. Robert planted his 280 acres with the 1964 Farmall. Neighbors offered to help, bring their modern tractors, plant faster. Robert declined. He'd do it himself. Took him 17 days to finish planting. Neighbors finished in 4 to 5 days. But Robert's way cost nothing. Their way required reciprocation or payment. Summer 2018. Robert scouted his fields daily, caught weed pressure early, sprayed immediately. His crop looked perfect. He farmed with an intensity he'd never had before. Every bushel mattered now. A 5 bushel per acre difference meant $3,500 on 280 acres. That was 2 months of debt payments. Fall 2018. Robert harvested 168 bushels per acre average, his best ever. At $3.62 corn, he grossed $170,000. After operating expenses of $49,000, he netted $121,000, his best year ever. He paid off the entire remaining bank loan in December 2018, $24,000 lump sum, done with the high-interest debt. Now only medical bills remained, totaling $21,507. He'd paid $28,140 in year 1, ahead of schedule. His daughters came for Christmas 2018. Noticed their father looked older, thinner, asked if he was eating enough. "I'm eating fine, just working hard." "Dad, you're 68. You shouldn't be working this hard." "I made a promise." "To who?" "Mom's gone." "To her memory. She hid this debt because she loved me. I'm going to honor that by eliminating it." Year 2, 2019. Robert continued the brutal pace. Maintained his equipment himself, worked longer hours than men 20 years younger, saved every possible penny. In March 2019, the Farmall's clutch failed. Not unexpected. The tractor was 55 years old, but the timing was terrible. Planting started in 3 weeks, cost to replace, $420 including parts and his labor. Robert didn't have $420 in his monthly budget. He'd need to earn it. He did more side work, welding, repairs, odd jobs, made $580 in 2 weeks, replaced the clutch, lost 1 week of prep time but got it done. In July 2019, Robert's kitchen sink collapsed. Old cast iron just gave out, needed replacement. Plumber quoted $200. Robert did it himself for $280 in parts. Took 3 days, countless YouTube videos, and several swear words, but he did it. Every month brought new challenges, but every month Robert wrote checks totaling $100 to medical providers. By December 2019, he'd paid another $1,300. Medical debt down to $8,307, total debt paid, $42,040 of the original $53,447, 1 year to go, year 3, 2020. Robert was 69 now, farming alone with equipment from 1964. His body hurt constantly, his back ached, his knees were shot. But he kept going. In February 2020, the Farmall's transmission started making noise, grinding, not good. Robert knew what that meant. Transmission rebuild, cost, probably $800 to $200. He didn't have it. He faced a choice: go into debt to fix the tractor or risk the transmission failing completely at the worst possible moment. He chose a third option. He called a transmission specialist, described the noise, asked what it might be. The specialist said, "Might be just a bearing. Before you rebuild, drop the pan, check the bearings." Robert did, dropped the transmission pan himself, found a worn bearing, bought a replacement for 85s, installed it himself. Took 3 days in his unheated shed in February. His hands went numb, but he did it. Transmission stopped making noise, saved $1,700. Spring 2020, COVID-19 hit. The world shut down. Farming continued, essential work. But markets went crazy. Corn prices spiked briefly to $3.90, then crashed to $3.10. Robert planted through the chaos, 280 acres, same as always, summer 2020. Robert was exhausted, working 7 days a week, no breaks, no vacations, just farming and debt. His daughters visited in July, found him asleep in a lawn chair at 7 p.m. Worried about him. "Dad, this is killing you." "No, it's keeping me alive. I have purpose. When this debt is paid, I'll rest." "You're 70. You should be retired." "I'll retire when I'm done." Fall 2020. Robert harvested 165 bushels per acre. At 372 corn, grossed $172,000. After expenses of $51,000, netted $121,000. Another strong year. By October 2020, Robert had reduced the medical debt to $1,240. So close. He could see the finish line. On November 15th, 2020, 3 years and 9 days after Margaret died, Robert wrote the final check, $1,240 to the last medical provider. The debt was paid completely. $50,347, eliminated in 3 years with a 56-year-old Farmall tractor and sheer determination. Robert sat in his kitchen that evening, holding the final receipt. Paid in full. He cried for the first time since Margaret's funeral, not from sadness, from exhaustion and relief. His daughters came over that weekend, noticed their father looked lighter somehow. The weight was gone. "You did it." "I did. Was it worth it? 3 years of this brutal pace?" Robert thought carefully. "Your mother hid that debt because she loved me. She didn't want me burdened. She died carrying that secret. The least I could do was honor her sacrifice by finishing what she started. Yes, it was worth it. Not financially. I probably shortened my life by 3 years from the stress. But morally, spiritually, yes. I kept my promise to her memory." In December 2020, Robert finally rested. First time in 3 years he took a day off. Just sat on his porch, did nothing, felt strange, foreign, but good. The story should have ended there, but it didn't. In January 2021, a reporter from Farm Journal heard about Robert's story through a local banker who'd been impressed by his discipline. The reporter interviewed Robert, wrote an article. Iowa farmer pays off wife's $50,000 medical debt in 3 years using only 1964 Farmall and determination. The article went viral in farming circles. Robert received hundreds of letters, some from farmers facing similar debt, some from people inspired by his dedication, some from equipment companies offering to give him a new tractor. Robert declined all offers. "I don't need a new tractor. The 1964 Farmall did its job. It carried me through the hardest 3 years of my life. I'm not getting rid of it." In March 2021, John Deere Corporate heard about Robert, wanted to feature him in an advertisement, offered $50,000. Robert declined. "I'm not interested in being a mascot for anyone's marketing. What I did for my wife, not for publicity." But the story wouldn't die. In June 2021, someone started a GoFundMe without Robert's permission, raised $80,000 before Robert found out and demanded it be shut down. He returned all the money to donors. "I didn't ask for help. I don't want help. I paid my debt. That's the end." People couldn't understand. Why refuse help? Why make it so hard on yourself? Why not accept kindness? Robert tried explaining in a local newspaper op-ed. "Margaret protected me by hiding that debt. She died knowing I'd be burdened by it, but hoping I wouldn't discover it until I was emotionally stronger. When I found those bills 3 days after her funeral, I understood what she'd done. She'd carried that weight alone, so I wouldn't have to. The only way I could honor that sacrifice was to carry it myself. No help, no shortcuts, just hard work and dedication. That's what marriage is. That's what love is, carrying burdens for each other, even after death." That explanation resonated deeper than anything else. The story shifted from stubborn old farmer refuses help to widower honors wife's memory through sacrifice. People understood that. Robert continued farming through 2021, 2022, 2023. His pace slowed. He was 73 by 2024, but he kept going. The 1964 Farmall, now 60 years old, kept running. In October 2024, Robert finally decided to retire. He was 74, the tractor was 60, they'd both earned rest. He sold his 280 acres for $4,150 per acre, won $358,000. After taxes, netted about $100,000. His daughters asked what he'd do with the money. "Leave most of it to you too. Keep some to live on, and I'm donating $100,000 to cancer research, in Margaret's name. She died from cancer. She died in debt from fighting it. Maybe this money will help someone else avoid both." The 1964 Farmall? Robert kept it, restored it completely, spent $8,000 on paint, new seat, new decals, made it look showroom new, parks it in his shed, starts it once a month just to hear it run. "That tractor saved me," Robert told a visitor in December 2024. "People think I saved the farm with that tractor. Wrong. That tractor saved me. After Margaret died, I could have collapsed, could have given up. But I had that tractor, and I had a promise. Every morning for 3 years, I walked out to that shed, started that engine, and went to work. The sound of that engine kept me sane. The work kept me alive. The debt gave me purpose. Without those 3 things, I'd have died of grief. Instead, I survived, thrived even. That old Farmall was my therapist, my companion, my purpose. Best $9,000 I ever spent." His wife died owing $50,000. He paid it in 3 years with his old Farmall and determination. Not because he had to, because he chose to. Because honoring her memory mattered more than comfort. Because some debts aren't financial, they're moral, and those can only be paid with sacrifice and love. But understanding why Robert Hayes drove himself so hard for 3 years requires understanding Margaret, understanding their marriage, understanding what those hidden bills represented. Robert and Margaret met in 1973. He was 23, working on his father's farm. She was 20, teaching elementary school in Rockwell City. They met at a church social, married 8 months later in April 1974. Their marriage had a simple division of labor. Robert farmed, Margaret managed everything else. Money, household paperwork. Robert trusted her completely, never questioned a decision, never asked to see bank statements. Their relationship was built on absolute trust. For 43 years, that trust never wavered. Margaret paid bills, managed savings, handled taxes. Robert farmed, maintained equipment, grew crops. They weren't wealthy, but they were comfortable. Owned their land, no debt, simple life. When Margaret was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in February 2017, Robert wanted to stop farming immediately, wanted to spend every moment with her. Margaret refused. "Keep farming. We need the income. Treatment is expensive." "I don't care about money. I care about you." Then care about me by making sure we can afford my treatment. Keep farming." Robert farmed, planted in April 2017 while Margaret started chemotherapy. She was sick constantly. Robert would come in from the field, find her on the couch, exhausted. He'd make dinner, clean up, sit with her. In May 2017, Margaret sat Robert down. "I need to tell you something. The cancer treatment is costing more than insurance covers. We're going through our savings fast." "How much do we have left?" "About 32,000. That'll last?" "I hope so, but if we need more, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about money, just keep farming." That was the last time they discussed finances. Robert assumed Margaret was managing it. She was. Just not the way he thought. In July 2017, their savings ran out. Margaret called the bank, applied for a personal loan. She'd never borrowed money in her life. The shame of it hurt almost as much as the cancer. But she needed experimental treatments, needed specialists, needed anything that might give her more time. The banker, John Reynolds, tried to talk her out of it. "Margaret, you're borrowing at 11.8%. That's expensive money. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I need this." "Does Robert know?" "No, and don't tell him this is my burden. He's got enough stress." John Reynolds approved the loan. $28,000 deposited to Margaret's personal checking account. She used it to pay medical bills as they came in. Made the first payment in September, $618. It hurt seeing that money leave, but it bought her one more month of treatment. October 2017, Margaret knew she was dying. The treatments weren't working. Her doctor suggested hospice. She refused. "Not yet. Give me one more month." She made the October payment on the loan, $618, only $26,140 was remaining, but she wouldn't make November's payment. She'd be dead. Margaret spent her final days organizing papers, making sure Robert would find everything. She put the medical bills in a folder marked Medical Private, hoping he wouldn't look immediately, hoping he'd have time to grieve before discovering the debt. She died November 9th, 2017. Robert found the bills November 12th. 3 days to grieve, then the burden transferred to him. Understanding this background makes Robert's determination make sense. The debt wasn't just money, it was Margaret's final sacrifice. She'd borrowed in secret to buy herself time. Time with Robert. Time with her daughters. Time to live. Robert paying that debt was his way of saying, "Your sacrifice mattered. Your time was worth the cost. I'll carry this burden because you carried it first." The 3 years Robert spent paying the debt were filled with moments of doubt, of exhaustion, of wondering if he could continue. February 2018, month 4 of payments. Robert sat in his kitchen doing math. He'd paid $6,172 so far, had $43,475 remaining. At his current pace, he'd be done in September 2020. 31 months. Could he sustain this for 31 more months? His daughter Sarah called that evening. "Dad, how are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine." "I'm tired, but I'm fine." "Dad, about the debt. Let us help. Jenny and I can each give you 10,000. That would cut your time significantly." "No." "Why not?" "Pride." "Not pride. Purpose. This is what I need to do. If you pay it, I lose that purpose." Sarah didn't understand then. Took her 2 years to understand that her father wasn't being stubborn. He was grieving, and the debt gave structure to his grief. Without it, he'd have collapsed. June 2018, month 8. Robert's air conditioner died. Middle of summer, 95 degrees. Repair estimate $2,400. Robert couldn't afford it. He lived without AC for 2 summers, slept on his porch, used fans, survived. His neighbor, Bill Peterson, offered to pay for the repair. "Robert, you can't live like this. Let me help. I'll manage." "That's not managing, that's suffering." "Then I'll suffer, but I'll do it my way." Bill didn't push. Told his wife, "Robert's punishing himself. For what? I don't know." Robert wasn't punishing himself. He was proving something, that he could endure what Margaret endured, that he was worthy of her sacrifice. December 2018, 1 year since Margaret's death. Robert paid off the bank loan completely, dropped a check for $24,000 on the banker's desk. John Reynolds looked shocked. "Robert, you paid this in 13 months. The original loan was for 60 months. "I know. How? Worked hard, spent nothing, saved everything." John Reynolds pulled Margaret's file, looked at the loan application from August 2017, saw that Margaret had marked it private, do not contact spouse. "Robert, Margaret didn't want you to know about this loan." "I know." "Then why?" "Because she protected me by hiding it. I protect her memory by eliminating it. That's marriage." John Reynolds, banker for 30 years, saw hundreds of loans, but he'd never seen anything like this, a widower paying his dead wife's secret debt out of love and honor. Year 2, 2019. Robert faced different challenges. The debt was smaller now, but his body was breaking down. April 2019. Robert threw out his back lifting a 50-pound fertilizer bag. Couldn't move for 3 days. Laid in bed, taking Tylenol, wondering how he'd plant. His daughter Jenny drove up from Des Moines. "Dad, you're 70. You can't farm alone like this." "I can. I will. Let me hire help. Someone to do the heavy lifting." "No, I can't afford it." "I'll pay for it." "No." Jenny was frustrated, couldn't understand her father's stubbornness. "Why are you making this so hard?" "Because easy doesn't honor what your mother did. She suffered alone. I'm suffering alone. That's fair." "That's insane." "Maybe, but it's my insanity." Robert recovered in 5 days, planted 3 days late, lost no yield. The body was weaker, but the will was stronger. August 2019, Robert's truck died. 2001 Ford, 240,000 miles. Transmission gave out. Repair, $3,200. Robert couldn't afford it. He borrowed his neighbor's truck for essential trips, walked everywhere else. Lived without his own vehicle for 7 months. Bought a used 1998 Chevy in March 2020 for $2,800 cash, money he'd saved doing side work. His daughters were horrified. "Dad, you're walking 2 miles to the co-op because you won't let us help." "I'm getting exercise. Good for me." They offered repeatedly to buy him a truck. He refused. "When the debt is paid, I'll buy my own truck. Until then, I walk." October 2019, 2 years into the journey. Robert calculated remaining debt, 8 to 307, 6 to 8 months at his current pace. He could see the end now. That motivated him when nothing else could. Year 3, 2020, the final push. Robert was 69, feeling 75, but he wouldn't stop. The COVID-19 pandemic added surreal elements. Robert was isolated already. Now the world joined him. Stores closed, church closed, life stopped. Robert kept farming, planted through the pandemic, sprayed through the pandemic, harvested through the pandemic. His daughters wanted him to move in with one of them. Safer during the virus, Robert refused. "I have 7 months left on this debt. I'm not stopping now." "Dad, you could die from COVID. Then I die, but I'll die farming and paying this debt, not hiding in someone's basement." He didn't get COVID. Maybe luck, maybe isolation, maybe pure stubbornness. June 2020. Robert was exhausted, 70 years old, farming alone, no breaks. He sat on his tractor one afternoon, thought about quitting, just walking away. Letting the remaining $3,000 in medical debt go to collections. Who would care? Margaret was dead. The bills were 3 years old. He could just stop. He started the tractor, kept working, because Margaret wouldn't have stopped. She'd fought cancer for 9 months, knowing she'd lose, never quit, never gave up. Robert couldn't dishonor that by quitting with $3,000 left. November 15th, 2020. The final payment. Robert drove to the medical provider's office in person, handed them a check for $840. The receptionist processed it, gave him a receipt. "Mr. Hayes, this completes your balance. You're paid in full." "I know. It's unusual for someone to pay cash like this. Most people just do minimum payments forever." "I'm not most people." Robert drove home, sat in his truck in the driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the receipt. Paid in full, 3 years, 4 days, $50,347. Eliminated with a 1964 Farmall tractor and determination. He walked into his house, taped the receipt to the refrigerator, called his daughters. "It's done." They drove up that weekend, found their father different somehow, lighter, the weight gone. They hugged him, cried with him, celebrated with him. Sarah asked, "Dad, what now? What do you do now that your purpose is complete?" "I farm, I rest, I live. Your mother gave me 3 extra years by hiding that debt. I gave her 3 years of honor by paying it. We're even now. Time to actually retire emotionally." Jenny said, "You know Mom would be proud, right?" "I hope so. That's all I wanted, for her to be proud. She is, wherever she is, she's proud." The aftermath of Robert's story was unexpected. The Farm Journal article made him famous in farming circles. People wanted interviews, wanted to understand why he did it. Robert tried explaining, "I'm not special. I'm just a man who loved his wife. She made a sacrifice, borrowed money in secret so she could fight for more time with me. When I found out, I had 2 choices: be angry she hid it, or honor why she hid it. I chose honor. The debt became my way of grieving. Every payment was a prayer. Every sacrifice was my thank you for 43 years with her. 3 years of hard work, that's nothing compared to what she gave me." People still didn't fully understand. They saw suffering. Robert saw purpose. A psychologist who read the article wrote to Robert, "What you did is a form of grief therapy. The debt gave you structure, goals, progress markers. Without it, you might have drowned in grief. Instead, you channeled grief into action. That's healthy, not stubborn." Robert hadn't thought about it that way, but maybe the psychologist was right. Maybe the debt saved him by giving him something to fight for when he wanted to give up. In retirement, Robert maintained the 1964 Farmall religiously, not because he needed it, because it represented those 3 years. Every hour on that tractor was an hour spent honoring Margaret. The tractor was a memorial, mobile, functional, loud, but a memorial nonetheless. In December 2024, Robert sits in his workshop, the restored Farmall gleaming under shop lights. He's 74 now. Margaret has been gone 7 years. The debt has been paid for 4 years. Life is different, quieter, but good. A young farmer, Daniel Wright, age 28, visits one afternoon. He'd heard Robert's story, wanted advice. His own wife had cancer, medical bills piling up. "Mr. Hayes, how did you survive? The debt, the grief, the work, how?" Robert started the Farmall, let it idle. The sound filled the shop. That sound. That's how I survived. Every morning I came out here, started this tractor and worked. The sound meant I was still fighting, still honoring her, still alive. You need to find your version of this sound. Whatever keeps you moving forward when everything says stop. Did it ever get easier? No, but it got more meaningful. The first payment hurt because it was just money leaving. The last payment hurt because it meant my grief project was complete, but every payment in between felt like I was doing something that mattered. That's rare in life. Daniel left an hour later, understanding something he hadn't before. Debt isn't always financial. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's spiritual, and sometimes paying it off is the most important work you'll ever do. Robert's story isn't unique in suffering. Many widowers face debt after a spouse's death. What makes his story remarkable is his response. He could have declared bankruptcy, could have negotiated settlements, could have accepted help. Instead, He chose the hardest path because it was the most honoring path. His wife died owing $50,000. He paid it in 3 years with his old Farmall, not because he had to, because love doesn't calculate cost, it just pays the debt.